Welcome. Namaste, beautiful souls. Welcome to my channel. My name is Sadhana. I'm an intuitive reader and healer, and Wednesdays, 5 p.m., I'm trying to be here to share with you decks that either are new to me and I'm giving you initial impressions, or once in a while I'm sharing with you decks that I've worked with for an extensive period of time. And occasionally there'll be side by sides. And so this particular time slot is dedicated to decks. And today we're going to look at the Cantigee Oracle, which is quite an amazing project by Rae Diamond and Laura Zuspan, who you may be familiar with from her Luminous Void Tarot. This is quite the tome that accompanies the oracle. And I want to say this is right off the top, this is an oracle that if you are doing any sort of healing work, that I would strongly recommend this as a resource. And there's lots of different ways that you can work with this deck. And today we will only sort of tap into the cards. I will do a complete walkthrough of the deck and talk a little bit about its structure. Okay. I will also hopefully, before I do the review on Friday, so Friday I'm doing a review of the tarot card of the year readings that I did. And in each of those, there was a Cantigee Oracle drawn. And I did not interpret that card in terms of the structure of the deck. I was reading those cards very intuitively. So I may offer more up on Friday as well too with this deck. Okay. Welcome to Tamian and Banj. Patrice, welcome back. And yes, disappear, come back. And if you have questions or feedback, you can always come back later and put that in the comments below. Okay. All right. Let's get to the cards and just start with, I'm going to get right into the cards. I don't want to spend too much time in cardstock and all of that. There's lots of reviews on YouTube. It's great card stock, super easy to shuffle. I'm a riffle shuffler. I have average size hands, so no problem with that at all. Yeah. So this is a deck that has 52 cards. And hi, Karen, welcome. One of the suggestions in working with this deck is to work with it year-round, so one card per week. And believe me, there are enough prompts in the deck to work with one card a week. There are journaling prompts. There's just all kinds of ways to tap into that. And we will look at one specific card and I will show you the depth of the information that's provided for each card. This deck begins at winter solstice. And this particular card, the dark solstice sun, refers to the winter solstice that we just experienced in the northern hemisphere. And so a logical place to begin your study with this deck would be at winter solstice. However, that's not necessary, but that is one invitation here. And then 26 cards later, if I can just flip over to that, we have a card for summer solstice. There you go. The exploding star. So the 27th card represents summer solstice. So these are two time markers that may or may not be relevant to your study. So if you presently are in the southern hemisphere, maybe you want to start with this particular card and then work your way through the deck. So that is one level of organization that is built into all of this. Okay. Now, the other piece here is that, so as you're aware, with the winter solstice, from the winter solstice to the summer solstice, we get more and more light. So these 26 cards have a waxing energy, while these 26 cards have a waning energy. So that's something that you might want to separate the cards and work with them in that way. So that is a possibility. And what I would like to do is simply go through all 26 cards and just share with you a couple of notes from the beginning of the guidebook. And so I'm going to refer to Flying a Little Closer. That is on page 18 in the guidebook. Okay. So we start with the dark solstice sun. And archetypes 1 through 4 would be the early phase of the moon. And if you work also with a different lunar oracle, I think that this would pair really nicely with the moon oracle or another moon oracle that you work with. It might be really great. So I will endeavor to read each of these. You don't know where you are, but you are free. And there's such a level of inspiration in this deck. The symbols are beautiful, and if you followed along last week, you'll know that it's definitely a deck you can read intuitively. There's enough information here that you don't need to feel tied to the guidebook, even though the guidebook is one of lots and lots of information. So here again, the moon is in the early phases of waxing, and we are the dawn that follows the prolonged night. Primary nourishment. And there are the phrases on this deck, a lot of them you will have not seen in any other deck. The living mountain. And when I look at this card, so here's an example of working with this deck. Yes, we're looking at the peak of a wave. And hi, Laura. And yes, the energy is rising. We also have this sort of a green man quality here. You can see the eyes and kind of the green man energy. But I might not see that. I might also focus on something about a wave. I think there's a lot of possibilities, and this does feel like growth. It feels like spiritual growth. It's almost like that number 5 at the top of the card is a little human. Every star is a doorknob. I mean, this is incredibly beautiful. I'm not going to use the guidebook because I need to focus on the cards and my impression of the cards, but know that there's of course there's a lot for every single card in the guidebook, but there's also guidance into working with the lunar phases if you're not familiar with working with waxing and waning energy, and what that means. Now I just had another idea. So when we get to those cards, I'll share it with you, but that is in calculating your optimal lunar phase, there's going to be 3 or 4 cards that connect in this deck. And those might be cards that you want to work with as well too. So if you go back to your day of birth and your time and hour and place, and you're familiar with your natal chart, you look to where the moon was at your time of birth. And the theory goes that lunar phase is kind of your power days. And 180 degrees are your quieter days, the days that things might go a little sideways for you. Okay, so that's another way you might work with this deck. Guided by Polaris. A swan in a crowd of crows. Rae Diamond wrote stories, fantasy stories. And in this collaboration between the stories she was creating and the art that Laura was creating, this deck was born. So this was a beautiful collaboration between two very, I want to say different, but spiritual souls. The voice of the moon, the infinite web, all intelligent tentacles. And I can see also me being very sensitive to the senses and the yogic connections as well too. When I read that key phrase, I'm thinking about touch and the information that is gleaned through touch. And there's so many ways to interpret these cards. Licking dew from green leaves. Your delight charms the world. There's some very flexible women in this deck. The chasm shrinks as you step across. Now, I don't know if that is so inspiring. The chasm shrinks as you step across. Like that's a mind-blowing thought. Your pinky finger turns into a bird. A charmed leap. There really is. I think there's one more leap card in this deck. And so this deck feels what is connected to leap? Faith, vision. I can also see this deck working really well with uh, not Light Seers Tarot, but the Oracle, the business Oracle. And I know it's not just for business. If somebody can tweak my memory, there's something going on with my brain today and remembering death names. A swarm of bees. And so here, this takes me in all kinds of magical and wonderful places. It takes me into the sound of bees. It takes me into the practice of Brahmari breath. It takes me into the medicine of bees and the question of fertility and how bees promote fertility. Thank you so much. Thanks, Tammy Ann. It takes me into, oh gosh, I don't know. There's just Chris Ann, Sacred Creators. Yes, the creator is the creator's name is Chris Ann, and the deck is Sacred Creators Oracle. I think these two decks would work really beautiful together. Okay. This card came up a couple of times in the readings. A fierce desert flower. Reminds me of a card in the Osho Zen Tarot. The moss cauldron. This is a powerful card, and this is definitely a card that I want to work with. I'm just going to go to the guidebook and see what she calls so the seasons are also, of course, defined in this description. So if card 26, 27 is the peak, it's cards 22, 23, 24 that would be connected with my peak time of the lunation cycle. And so those are the ones that, and this one comes just before that. So this would be just after the quarter moon. And here's another idea. What if you took a silver Sharpie and you drew moon phases on these cards? That would be really cool. Tammy said she's worked with this particular card and it speaks to alchemy. So the whole idea of cauldron, but there's something about the moss cauldron that feels so beautiful. And the fact that the cauldron, and I know that iron, of course, comes from the earth, but there's something about the moss cauldron that feels really magical. Okay. Your heart in sync with cricket's song. Your heart in sync with cricket song. This is a card to remind us of how easy it is, I believe, to reset, to calm down, to find peace and tranquility. And if we live and we listen and we respond in harmony with nature, we can slow our heartbeat, we can slow our respiration, we can find calmness of the mind, stillness of the heart. And I've shared with you my story. I was in my 50s and I was pretty sure that my perimenopause stage had finished. And I attended a yoga retreat, and everybody at the yoga retreat was in their 20s, 30s, and I started bleeding because they were, and I was in sync. My body wanted to be in sync with the general energy of the experience. Never bled after that, but that was a very profound experience for me in this lesson. And I know this is a card of sound, but there's something here about acknowledging the power of the synchronicity of the universe in healing, in healing. And it's almost as if that experience for me was like a final cleansing. So on one level, that yoga retreat was for cleansing and peace and harmony and all of that. But my body responded in a particular way, and it was amazing. Hi, Ember. Welcome. I'm sorry if that's TMI for some people. Kissed by Whale Spray. This is just a gorgeous card. The Luminous Brew. And you can see that there are some cards that connect through theme or through gesture in the painting as well, too. Pollination. I believe we saw this card twice during the readings as well. That's beautiful, Karen. Welcome. And Karen is a new member of my Facebook group as well, too. And, I mentioned this the other day that I've been not just mindlessly accepting people into the Facebook group, especially because our Wednesday night chats in the Facebook group can be rather intimate. And I sent Karen a message and she kindly responded to me. So, yeah. I really like this card. The Juniper. So we have another cauldron here. Oh, no, it's not. It's the Juniper caduceus. This is one of the cards that I put on the thumbnail. The Juniper caduceus. Wow. I have looked at banyan trees in this way and been blown away. Touching the star-kissed leaf. I think what I'm going to do is, so we're at 25, so we're nearing the energy of the full moon. You are seen. So let's put them this way. I can do them this way. And then we have the exploding star. So this represents the summer solstice, but this could also be your full moon card if you're working with the deck in the waxing and waning energy. Okay. And so now the cards begin to disseminate, and we are just moments after the energy of the full moon, or when the light, so this would be just after summer solstice. And we have a crab. How perfect is that? So that's a lovely connection here, carried by the current. The coiled snake. And this is a card that has me. I really want to work with this card. And I think perhaps it's another approach to working with an oracle deck, is to, if there's a card that speaks to you, to pull it out and to work with it. Now, this is something that comes from Chris Ann, I believe, from the Sacred Creators Oracle. First place I ever read it. And I have the indie version. So this is some years back. One of the things that she asks you to do is to pick out your favorite card and the most repulsive card, the card that you absolutely love and makes you feel all wonderful, but also pick out the card that makes you feel the most uncomfortable, and to spend some time working with both of those cards. And I think that's an excellent exercise to do. And this one is just, this one has a very strong pull for me. This is the Sentient Nest. And it just reminds me of, I do, I talk to the rocks. I know that these are all sentient beings. This is a kind of a coral scene. I see this as an underwater scene. It could also be, I don't know, a splash of fall leaves or something, but there's just something quite beautiful here. I have my favorite rock trolls. I really, this is something I honor, and I would like to work with this card. The self-seeing eye. The self-tending fire. Now, this is a big, I want to say this is a big ask. I'm just going to turn those over so you can respond to Karen. The self-tending fire. I'm not sure how much I want to say here, but this is a really big project. This would be a solar plexus chakra in balance, a solar plexus chakra in harmony, a solar plexus chakra that is able to regulate its digestion, that is able to manage its fiery emotions brilliantly, that is empowered and yet not overpowering. I can see this would be another great card to work with. And I have no idea. If there's anything about that in the guidebook. I have not read the guidebook. Roots grow from your feet. When I see this card, I think of a Fool card. And I think of a couple of Fool cards where we see the Fool walking and there's flowers and things that grow where the Fool walks. This is a card of connection. This is a card of trusting in beginnings and that things will grow and that we will discover connections. This is a great card. Wow, what would you do? These are kind of brilliant. Your ears become a butterfly. If we actually listened, how could we transform? And there's something else that's going on here. I also see a coccyx. I see a coccyx, and I could work with this also as pelvic bones and a coccyx, and work with the transformation from that body part as well too. A thorn in the paw, a great card for working with reaction and response. I was very moved when this card came up last week. And this is a very new deck to me. I saw this maybe on Honey Rose Rituals channel. I believe it was on Meg's channel. And I ordered it right away. It's just, there's just something really magical here. So we'll get through the cards, and then I'll share with you one page from the book, one card from the book. Clouds pass, but the mountain remains. How profound is that? Hi, Sunny, welcome. A fork in the river. A fork in the river. They do not miss their seed pods. They do not miss their seed pods. To me, this deck is right up there with, like, this is, if I were to do a top 5 oracle, this is going to challenge, this is going to unseed one of my top 5 oracles. I think it's that good. Hello, Ange. Welcome. A peach so ripe. And it's funny, because I did one reading. I did a series of Kwanzaa readings from December 26th to January 1st. And one day I worked with the Hoodoo Tarot, and I drew the peach card, which is a horrific story about, I want to say, the effects of negative imprints, and how we must be very careful of negative imprints. And it just really got me thinking about, well, I pulled this card as well too, not too long ago, and the power and the influence and the layering of decks upon decks, and what we can learn and how we can expand our knowledge and the information that we have to share with others, especially if we're sharing our readings with others. And you would think that would be a positive card, but last week for me it wasn't. In the Garden of Lost Teeth. That's a great story. The Carving Glacier. The power of water. The conversation that we need to have about water in its different forms. We often talk about water and diving into the ocean and subconscious and Scorpio energy and emotions and healing and all of that. But sometimes water is as sharp as a knife. It's as sharp as a sword. And it can cut like a sword does. And I've always been fascinated with the layering of the suit of water and the suit of air. Snake. Snake encircles the moon. Is there a ring around the moon where you live right now? Thank you. I'll be sure to read that. Thank you. That's what this makes me think of, is this circle around the ring around the moon. Isn't there a song about that as well too? And I have a story about this as well. I have a personal connection, the wounded harpy eagle, which I won't share with you now. So remember where we are in the energy of the waxing and the waning. So now we are at, there's 52 cards in the deck. So we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we're 9 cards away from the dark moon again. Wingless, you fall into the sea. Wingless, you fall into the sea. I was just talking about the birds on the arms of the trail of coral in the Philarcos Tarot. I wonder if I could build in a correlation with that. Your feet are 2 fish. Quite like that card. And I want to say that this collaboration between Rae and Laura is brilliant. I don't feel that one shines any more loudly than the other. This is a true collaboration. The unburdened bones. And this is truly what it feels like when the weight is lifted off the shoulders. When you begin physically to open and release tension in the shoulders and the neck. This is also, and if you're looking here, these are hip bones. But I'm a yoga teacher, and there's a correspondence between the shoulders, of course, and the shoulder girdle and the hip girdle. And the hip girdle is the hardest place to release tension and release energy. It's the chakra where we bring in all of those heavy, heavy karmas. I see there's a comment. In the tunnels of our ancestors. In the tunnels of our ancestors. That's a beauty. And here we are, we're going back into the roots, right? We're going into the darkness. Did you ever wonder what the worms know? The worms know a lot. In the land of the vanished. A hummingbird in Langur. And this is the card we're going to discuss tonight. The setting sun sings the song of unmaking. I'm going to talk about this card tonight in the Facebook group. And the 52nd card is You Are a Multitude. Okay. So I am going to shuffle the deck just to show you I'm not fooling. This is the Wild Unknown Tarot. Centennial. It is, I want to say it's a little bit thicker than Llewellyn cardstock, but it has that bendy nature that is very easy to shuffle. If you had little hands, could you do this? I think you could. I think you could. And of course, on camera, it's always more challenging. And I'm leaning over. I'm going to come over here and do it in front of myself instead of leaning. Because I was leaning way over there. And if you watch the videos, you saw me shuffling. Yeah, it shuffles really well. Beautiful. No problem. Love the cardstock. So now what I'm going to do is share with you one of the pages in the guidebook. Okay. And I hope that some of my perspectives also help you to maybe look at the deck in a different way. Okay. And I will get the card. So let's draw a card, and then I'll draw a card, and then we'll look at the book for that card. Okay. So this is number 10. Number 10, the infinite web. We'll put it down here. All right. So for each card, there is this section in italics that is the story. That is the story that Rae Diamond shared, and I'm sure it's a shorter version of a longer story. So this reads like a story. They're really touching. They're very beautiful. And then we go to key notes. So perhaps the key theme of this particular story. She goes on to describe the symbology of the story and what support it may offer. And the guidance is quite extensive. And then she talks about the symbols. So this section is called As an Icon, and then As a Portal. So this may work for you with path working or so forth. And I'll read this one to you. It says, let this inquiry open you to receiving the gifts of this archetype. What if everything you say, do, feel, and think impacts everyone and everything else in nature? And then following that are practices. So, like I said, if you were to work with one card for a week, you would have more than enough information to work with, because there's also creative suggestions as well too. Ecological connections. And none of those sections is without deep wisdom. So I think what I will do is I'll just close and I'm going to read you the story for our 10th card. Okay? Because I think that would be a brilliant way to close. And I'll do my best to hold it up while I read. It is a moist morning. Throughout the forest, sunlight refracts in bedewed spiderwebs. Each one is a floating rainbow of jewels, undulating in a subtle breeze that wafts between reaching twigs. Breathing the air feels like imbibing a crisp, refreshing drink as your eyes feast on the colors of the luminous dew and bluing sky. You come upon a tiny spring that forms a pool the size of a puddle. You lean over it, intending to have a drink, but something about the reflection on the liquid surface gives you pause. You gaze for a long time, entranced. The world you have been walking through felt alive and vibrant, but something about this reflection is even more vital and aglow. After a while, you notice there are far more spiderwebs in the reflection than in the actual space around you. In fact, the entirety of the reflected world seems to be a vast, intricate web. When you look up from the pool, you continue to see glistening strands connecting each individual plant, each leaf, each twig, each insect, and even you to everything else, no longer just in the reflecting pool, but also in the world around you. You entered this space thinking you were a visitor, separate and differentiated. You now realize you are an intrinsic part of an infinite web. Each step you take ripples outward in all directions, and each wing beat, each falling of leaf or seed, is subtly felt by you. This is a really profound experience that I'm sure many of you have had in connecting with nature in different ways. And I'm sure some of you see ley lines and you see the webs occasionally or more often than that. And yeah, so I suppose in drawing this card, this is an invitation as well to you to perhaps tomorrow, depending on where you are in the world, to enter into the space of nature and blur your vision a little, hold on to the trees and allow that energy to infuse your soul and honor the connections in all beings. Thank you for being here, and I really appreciate all of you who shared your experience with this deck as well too. Thank you to the creators, Laura and Rae, for this offering as well. Namaste. I'll see you soon. Bye for now.